Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Every time when I'm awake, all things that I see, I know it's hard to believe, but it's from the Almighty. When the leaves fall from the tree, every plant that grows on land, when the waves flow in the sea, it's by His command. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. To Allah do I return, paradise is what I'll earn, if I work hard and pray to my Lord every day. So Allah give me the strength, show me the way the Prophet went, let me hold tight to your rope, without Islam there is no hope. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Ya Allah, I thank you for my clothes and my food. As I live throughout this test, I'll remember I've been blessed. Ya Allah, hear my dua. Please help your ummah, so that we can all unite and praise you day and night. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. 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 Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Radio Ramadan Live. This is Sister Circle with myself, Sister Amanah, and also Sister Julie. And we are going to be with you this afternoon until 4 o'clock, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Julie.
Walaikum salam.
Are you
how
well?
Are you? Oh, alhamdulillah, I am fine.
We're always fine when we're in the studio, aren't we?
We are indeed.
Always fine once we are here.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
We're looking like we've got a uniform on today, don't we?
Well, we're not on the camera, so unfortunately, or rather fortunately, nobody can see, but we do have a Radio Ramadan uniform now. We have nice little white hoodies with our Sister Circle logo on the back and our names on the front. We might have to take a picture at some point to let other people see, because we're not on. We're a bit camera shy, aren't we, Julie?
We are indeed.
We like to be in the away from the TV screens. So anyway, so today we're going to be talking. It's a two-part show actually. On this occasion, so we'll do the first part this week and we'll do the second part next week. So the title for today's show is The History of Islamic Medicine.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, the title of the show next week is The Future of Islamic Medicine. So we can't really do kind of like the future without kind of going into the history, which is why it's really important that we cover that. And, you know, health affects everybody. Through all the ages, through all the years, health has been something that's affected everybody. So why not talk about it a little bit more? So as always, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Anything that we say of good and of benefit is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and anything that we say that is incorrect or misguiding, please forgive us, because it is from ourselves. So, the history of Islamic medicine. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I left among you what if I told you to hold on to will never go astray. He said, the book of Allah and my sunnah. Now this is a hadith. So he says, what if I told you that if I left something among you that'll never go astray, so you must hold on to it, which is the Quran and the sunnah. The Quran obviously being the words of Allah, and the sunnah obviously being the actions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, this does not just apply only to acts of worship, but Islam covers every aspect of our life, and it is the well-being of the whole person, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. However, for a Muslim to be able to fully complete all of their Islamic duties, both to themselves and for others, we need our health.
We do.
If we don't have health, our ibadah is going to be very, very difficult.
Yes.
And when we look at what ibadah is, it isn't just, you know, performing the 5 daily salah, the pillars, you know, the articles of faith. It's not just these things, you know, from our dress, but looking after our family is a form of ibadah. Grandchildren, ibadah. Being kind to our neighbors, ibadah. You know, passing complete strangers on the street, owning pets that we might have, or just animals that come into our garden, or we see out in the wild. The list just is so endless.
It's completely comprehensive, isn't it?
Categorized as it ibadah. But to do all of these things, we need to be physically active. We need to be mentally stable. We need to be able to move about. We need to be able to think, you know, comprehend, have empathy, sympathy, these emotions. So it's quite a big picture. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, hold fast to these things I'm leaving you, which is the Quran and my sunnah, it's not just the obvious being to keep your prayers, to keep your fast, to try and do Hajj, to obviously, you know, live life as a Muslim. But we have to look beyond that. You know, there's a lot of sunnahs that are quite forgotten or not as prioritized as others that are more at the forefront. So it's really important that we sort of don't be tunnel visioned with our Islam and don't kind of just see the 5 pillars, for example, and kind of stay within them grounds, but we have to open it up so much more.
Yeah, I think also that, you know, your health is and your body is an amanah on you anyway. So you have the it's beholden
from Allah
to
we
us
belong, and to Allah we return.
Absolutely,
the body comes from Allah, and it will return to Allah.
And we have a duty to care for that which we've been given, you know. And we all know that as far as health goes, you know, if you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out, don't you? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, you know, you have got a duty to honor the health that you've been given and the body that you've been given, and try and do your best. You know, we're not all going to eat, you know, the best thing all the time, but you know, you have that underlying, you know, I'm not going to self-destruct.
Definitely.
You know, you've got it's a duty that you have to yourself and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
100%.
To not drive yourself deliberately into the ground.
It's the same, you know, for example, if we buy a car and we try and maybe water down the petrol to maybe make that last a bit longer.
Or never get it serviced.
We buy the cheapest oil, we don't get it serviced, we don't keep air in the tyres. It's never going to work.
Yeah.
at its full capacity that it was designed to work at. And we're never going to get the duration, the mileage, the comfort from it that it's designed to give.
Properly,
and our bodies work in exactly that same concept. Absolutely. If we put cheap stuff in, if we don't look after it, we don't give it adequate rest, adequate sleep, adequate hydration, the healthiest foods that we can physically afford and prepare, we are not going to get that longevity out of our lives. We're not going to get that physical mobility that we're designed to be able to do. And we are designed to be physically active. The human body is capable of so many amazing feats. You've only got to look at something like the Olympics, for example, to see what the human body, how fast it can go, how high it can jump. And then these are obviously restrained within the Olympics, but there are human beings out there that don't even compete, that are capable of climbing to the top of Everest, can climb a tree without a harness, can swim across an ocean. How many people have swum from England across to France? You can't put your feet down in the middle of the sea and take a rest. And the temperatures of the water, the current, the unpredictable weather, and the human body is, if it's looked after, if it's conditioned, if everything that it is needed is catered for, it really is capable of amazing feats.
Well, you see these, these people that live, I suppose you'd call them the kind of tribes that have been, unspoilt, I suppose, by modernism. And you get these people who can, they could run as fast as somebody who is running a marathon, like all day, literally all day. And they don't, they don't eat all our, processed, high calorie, nothing in them foods. And they sleep, when the sun goes down, and they wake up when the sun comes up, and they
follow the rules of nature, and they live from what nature's provided.
And they are exemplars of health, and they just, I couldn't even think about like running, full pelt, because effectively they run faster than I ever could with my little legs. Like literally, they chase down, animals. They can run an animal to death. It's just an amazing, and they all do it. It's, it isn't just like one or two people in these groups of people. It's how they live.
And it's how we are designed.
Although climb a tree and like
that's our capacity as well, but we're not.
But we don't even know if we can do it.
We're not utilizing it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
As I said, this is a lot of forgotten sunnahs based around health and the welfare of ourselves, mental health, physical health.
I think it's also this we think that being comfortable is good for us, but actually
nothing ever grows in the comfort zone, Julie. Nothing ever grows in the comfort zone.
But it really is surprising how stressing a body, and how it's that I can't remember what it's called, but it's if what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Actually, really stressing a body almost to its limit actually means that the body then responds to that and improves. So it's comfort isn't a good thing, always a good thing.
No,
we like a bit of comfort, but it's not always a good thing.
Rest is important, absolutely. It's important, but there's a difference between everything in moderation, everything in balance. And too much rest, as you say, becomes comfortable, and then we get comfortable being comfortable.
Yes, like this is the way things should be, and it's not.
No, it's not. We are designed to be active. We're designed to, like you say, just push them limits. And there are humans out there that do it, and they're amazing, mashallah. And we have really so much potential that we're not utilizing. So obviously, with this concept of holding fast to the Quran and the Sunnah, and not just staying tunnel visioned on the 5 pillars, which obviously do hold their importance, of course. But we have to widen our horizon to the other Sunnahs, the other actions, the other attributes that are mentioned. I mean, food is mentioned so many times in the Quran, so many times in the Hadith, and we will come to that next week. But what we're going to do, obviously, this week is go back in time. And before we get to Islamic history, we're going to look at Western history, because medicine didn't begin with Islam. Obviously, civilization was here many moons before Islam was established. So obviously there were medical systems in place. Each country had its own medical system.
Yeah.
That, you know, in China they had a very robust medical system going on. In India, one of the oldest medical systems in the world, which is called Ayurveda, they had that going on.
Yeah.
You know, the Mayans, these are the smaller tribes, they had their medical systems going on. So obviously once Islam became established, they then had Islamic medicine.
Yeah.
But we have to look at what was around before that a little bit. And we could go through each country, but we'd be here a long time. So I thought what we'll do is we'll compare Western medicine and Eastern medicine, which then moves on to Islamic medicine. So in terms of Western medicine, since the beginning of recorded history, Western medicine practitioners have adopted one or two paths, basically, one or two opinions, which is reason or experience, or rather what it's known as is rationalism or empirism. There we go. I'm a bit tongue-tied today. So reason or experience,
Fast in mouth,
which are obviously very, very different.
Yeah.
And then we have rationalism and empiricism. There we go. Empiricism. I will get there. So rationalism is the acquiring of medical skills through reason.
Right.
And empiricism is the acquiring of medical skills through experience.
Yes.
Okay. So they're very opposing thought processes. They're not similar. They're on opposite sides.
It's like being a theoretical physicist and a practical physicist.
So this is the path of Western medicine. You were either on the rationalism side, or you were on the empiricism side. In short, you went through reason or you went through experience. So the difference in approach of these two concepts is actually quite vast. Empiricism respects the integrity of the whole person as a unique and individual special case. It considers lifestyle, emotional and environmental factors, which belief system a person may have, like what faith they are, or subsequently no faith at all, and how ultimately all of these things will contribute and impact on a person's health and potential illness as well. On the other hand, rationalism, this concentrates on attacking the illness by alleviating the symptoms of the disease rather than searching for the actual root cause of it.
Right, yeah.
So this is how, and a lot of obviously olden day medicine that we would consider is of the opinion of the first group,
Yes.
which is where they would treat the whole person fully.
Yeah.
And a lot of modern day medicine is becoming very along the path of what's the symptoms and let's reduce those.
Yes. So yeah, you're treating the disease rather than the person.
Yes, rather than the cause.
Yeah.
So again, rationalism or
Was it empiricism?
Empiricism, yes. That word really, you just get one of them
Don't
words that's
use
just
it
like an
then.
absolute mental block. If I don't, it will make it more confusing. But
Well,
anyway,
I
it's just a
can't.
mental block for me.
I can't say hyaluronic acid. I can't say that, so I've given up now.
Empiricism. Okay, so obviously we have two opposition sides. So we have those that basically look at the symptoms and they try and treat the symptoms, and then we have those that will look at the cause, what's causing it, and let's try and sort that out.
Yes.
So sort of like a prevention rather than cure. One is cure, one is prevention. We could go down that route if you want to. Now, an example of these two different thought processes in people, in persons, would be the example of Hippocrates and Aristotle.
Right.
Okay. Hippocrates. Oh, my tongue's not working today. I'm not working today. I need to go home. Hippocrates.
We've turned it into a double act.
Hippocrates and Aristotle. So Hippocrates, he lived about 1,000 years before Hijrah, and he built his medical practice on observation and experience using the natural world. So he used the natural world as a teacher to help him better understand how healing was achieved. And Hippocrates is a perfect example of the empiricism belief. And this type of practice persisted for centuries and was the standard approach for methods of healing. And the Hippocrates Oath, which is a vow
yes, yeah.
containing a code of ethical behavior, is still taken by the Western trained medical students today from all over the world.
That's the do no harm one, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
it is. So he was, like I say, about 1,000 years before Hijrah, like before the Islamic calendar began, before the practice of Islamic medicine arrived. And he was still of that notion of to treat the person as a whole, and to use nature for his influence, and to have that empiricism belief. Aristotle, who lived in the 9th century before Hijrah, so he came obviously after Hippocrates. I'm getting there. On the other hand, he was a perfect candidate to advocate the rationalism belief and practice. So Aristotle made major contributions in anatomy, biology, and he further studied and taught philosophy, physics, and metaphysics. And Aristotle was of the notion of to treat the symptoms.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So if we fast forward from Hippocrates and from Aristotle, and we fast forward to the year 1263, this is when the American Medical Association was founded, obviously in the United States, with the intention of elevating the standard of the medical education in the United States. And the philosophy of the AMA, the American Medical Association, counteracted the empiricism philosophy and instead encouraged the rational approach to medicine of Aristotle, which is a bit odd actually, because they used the Hippocrates Oath, but then they actually leaned a bit more towards Aristotle in practice.
It's definitely the kind of like the body that has the disease is basically just the vessel that's holding the disease, and you still got to get rid of the disease. It's more like it's you know, the person it's all about let's treat this disease, and it just so happens that it's like it's resident inside, I don't know, a liver or a whatever, or the person as a whole, but they're not really considering the person as a whole.
So the Islamic concept is very different, which we will come to shortly, but obviously
the Islam
we'll hold on to the Western view of the medical world first.
Medicine 2.0 really, isn't it?
You know, so basically, as I said, the American Medical Association encouraged a more rationalism approach to medicine as opposed to that of Hippocrates.
I suppose you can codify it better, can't you? That's the thing. You can write down rules for treating certain diseases.
Exactly, and this is what happened. So the efforts of the American Medical Association, they were given the support of, at the time, the emerging pharmaceutical industry. So you've got the medical industry, they're kind of emerging and getting stronger with the conduct of the AMA. And then you've got the emerging pharmaceutical organizations that are kind of emerging at the same time. This was in 1263. So this was in America.
So is that, are you giving me Hijra numbers there?
No, that's Common Era.
It'd be 1963.
That's Common Era.
It'd be 1963.
Is it 1963?
It'd have to be 1963.
Okay.
I was just thinking, that's about the time that the FDA, because it was a very fledgling. Well, the FDA.
No, because actually we're moving on to the American Civil War, which was earlier.
The AMA. Oh well, it's in 12. Well, the American Civil War, because they've only had like about 200 years of history, haven't they? So, I think it was the 1600s, wasn't it? Okay. Might be 1600s then.
But during this period, of the American Civil War, while we've mentioned Civil War, because this is the link here, right? This is the link. During the period of the American Civil War, when this started, obviously there was, there's a war. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be disease from being in, on the battlefield and so on. And I apologize for the music. We have the window open in the studio, and somebody seems to be
playing very loud music. Wow.
Having a loud stereo outside, but we'll carry on anyway. So,
crumbs. I think we might have to close the window. We don't normally have this trouble, do we?
I've just been to the window to close it to lower the interference, but there's literally 3 men walking down the street with a massive speaker and dancing at the same time.
Oh well. Each to their own.
Astaghfirullah, it's Ramadan. Let's stay focused. Let's stay focused.
It's Easter Sunday.
Okay. So the American Civil War, people were getting injured,
Mm.
they were getting ill, you know, limbs were being blown off and so on, as you can imagine, through a war. And what happened at that time was the pharmaceutical companies were able to readily provide treatments to the newly trained medics.
Right, yeah.
And they were able to deliver very, very easily and quickly the correct dosage to the correct injury. Because what the pharmaceutical companies were doing is they were producing medicines. You know, imagine how we have it today. You go to the chemist, you get medicine, there's an insert, and the insert will tell you what that medicine will treat, what dosage you need, what side effects and symptoms to look out for, and that type of thing. So this was kind of emerging like this. So the pharmaceutical companies were able to fast track a lot of the medics that didn't have to then study as long and as hard, because they had this information to say this drug will treat this drug will treat that. If this is the injury, they need this dosage. If this is the situation, they need that dosage. So the medics were able to get out into the field of medicine a lot quicker, due to the information provided by the pharmaceutical company and the information they were able to make obvious at that time. So these newly patented drugs, along with the newly fast-tracked medics, quickly realized as well. This is both a positive and a negative. Quickly realized they could financially gain from each other.
Oh yes, the match made in heaven.
So this was the beginning of the relationship between the medics and the pharmaceutical companies, because they realized they could be of benefit to each other.
Mutually beneficial arrangement.
Yes.
That's
and soon afterwards, the American Medical Association started evaluating and validating medical schools in the United States. I am actually 100% 1263. But anyway, we'll stick with it. So soon afterwards, they started evaluating and validating the medical schools in the United States. And as expected, the results of this project were proclaimed in favor of allopathic medicines, which we've come to know today as modern day medicine. Many other schools at the time who didn't want to actually follow the path of allopathic medicine were forced to close down or forced to follow the new scientific medical path. So holistic medicine or alternative medicine or old-fashioned medicine, whatever you want to call it, was really pushed out in favor of something that could be patent, could allow the doctors that support of these inserts and these instructions. And this was like a really kind of surge from the allopathic medical perspective. And I mean, in some cases, you've only got to look at different points in history where women were branded as witches, for example.
Yes.
Because they dealt with potions and, they were seen to be standing over a black cauldron with a black cat and a broomstick, and they were mixing some potions. But ultimately, they were just working in holistic medicines. They were working with nearby herbs, seeds, trees, grasses, whatever, making a holistic poultice or lotion or drink or whatever it was they were making, and they were applying it. But because of this push of allopathic medicine, anybody who had a different opinion were really frowned upon. There
is a kind of a slight tangent of the there's a theory around why women were branded witches, and why cats are often associated, the black cat that comes with the witch, because at the time, this was at the time of the plague, so we're looking at kind of medieval Europe and England, and we now know, although they didn't know at the time, that the plague was transmitted by mice and rats, or that they had the fleas on the mice and the rats were what was transmitting the plague. But if you have a cat, you don't have rats and mice in your house.
That's true.
And if you don't have rats and mice in your house, you're not going to get the plague, are you?
That's true.
So you would be looking like you were immune from the plague, or your family was immune from the plague, because you had a cat in your house. So and then they were like, oh well, there must be a witch because they haven't got the plague. So that's why that cats are associated with witches, and why people assumed that they were witches because they weren't getting the plague. There you go.
And they weren't.
Slight
They were
tangent.
just holistic practitioners.
They were just living their lives, and
that
yes.
was at least part of what they did.
Yes.
I can't vouch for whether they were witches or not, but one thing they did follow was the holistic medicines.
Absolutely,
and,
yeah. Well, I mean,
as we would call it today, foraging.
Yeah, or
they were,
willow bark instead of aspirin, and there's pretty much. I mean, if you look at all of your base medicines, not the pharmaceutical company are very good at looking at certain molecules and going, yeah, but if we tweak this and we tweak that, it'll do something that's slightly different. But you kind of your base medicines, your the likes of your statins and aspirin, and they all metformin as well. That was that's a came from a plant. So they all started the pharmacology all started from plants.
Well, what happened was that was their inspiration, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't going to go down this route, but we're going down this route. So we'll go down this route. But every medicine that exists was originally inspired by something from nature.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, we can look at something like ibuprofen, for example.
Yeah.
So the nearest holistic version of ibuprofen would be turmeric. Some people know it as healthy.
Yeah.
And some people they just go to the local spice shop and buy a packet of turmeric and throw it in some milk, and they think this is going to have some positive effect on the body. Unfortunately, it isn't. You have to understand how to prepare the turmeric. You have to understand what dosage you need for the ailment you are taking.
You need quite a lot of turmeric to do its thing.
You do, because the powder version is so weak. It's just there for flavoring food, or food coloring in some aspects. Now, obviously, if you've got a headache, for example, and you can go to your local pharmacy, you can pick up a packet of ibuprofen. There'll be an insert, and it will tell you what's the minimum dosage, what's the maximum dosage, the age of those dosages. Obviously, a child would need a much lower dose than an adult. It will tell you who cannot take the medicine.
Yep.
It's somebody who it may be harmful for. And obviously, your GP at that point, if that dosage was too low and your pain, cause of your pain was so high, your doctor would then have the information to be able to say, well, this dosage that you can get in the pharmacy is too low for your condition, but as your GP, I can safely prescribe you to take a much higher dose of this medicine, or I can give you a stronger version of this medicine. Obviously, ibuprofen goes up to there's like naproxen, and then there's like other drugs that are stronger, and then we go all the way right up to morphine if you want to go all the way up there. So obviously paracetamol being something on the lower end, ibuprofen being a bit higher up, and going up like that. And they would come with these inserts, but you go to your local food shop and you buy some turmeric root. There's no insert with it. There's no instructions telling you, right, if you have a headache, you need to prepare it this way. If you have this symptom, you need to prepare it that way. There's nothing. These are forgotten remedies of past civilizations. Whether some of them are from the Sunnah, some of them are from Quran, some of them are just from culture from different countries, but they are so forgotten in favor of modern day medicine. And there is a benefit in both. There's good in both. But the major benefit of modern day medicine is the fact that we have these inserts very clear. We can get that information very clear from the GPs. This needs this treatment. This needs this dose, and so on. And we can generally, readily available, very easily go into the pharmacy or into the GP surgery and walk out with a box or a bottle of pills or some lotion or some medicine. We don't have to think too much about it. We tell our symptoms to somebody who gives us something back, and the dosage is very simple: 1 tablet for this, 2 tablets for this, 3 tablets for that. With holistic medicine, you really have to know your stuff. There's not enough holistic practitioners as there are modern day allopathic practitioners to be able to get that advice and get that
Yeah.
guidance from. Things in nature don't come with a label. They don't come with instructions. This is a knowledge that needs to be passed down from generations to generations, from family to family, or from, you know, somebody with knowledge to somebody with knowledge. And it's not as widely used. And another disadvantage to holistic medicine is that sometimes it doesn't work as quick. So sticking with the ibuprofen and the turmeric example, if you've got the correct dosage of turmeric and you take it for a headache, it's not going to work as quick as a tablet of ibuprofen. Ibuprofen's going to work in probably 15-20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Whereas the turmeric's going to work probably within 24 hours. It kind of takes about 24 hours to get into your system. It's quite slow acting, but once it's in there, it's very powerful.
Yeah.
But it's for something like a headache or something more serious like a car crash and you're in a lot of pain. Turmeric's going to take a lot longer to start working. But the benefit of the holistic treatment is it doesn't have the side effects that the allopathic medicine has. So a lot of allopathic medicine, if you're going to take it long term, especially taking a paracetamol here or there isn't going to cause too much damage. But taking something long term, persistently, or the dosage keeps getting stronger because the lower level isn't working anymore, and you have to take a stronger version. They are going to come with side effects. They're going to upset the gut. They're going to upset the kidneys. They're going to upset the liver. They're going to upset the immune system. They're going to upset, you know, the quality of blood. They're going to compromise your brain. There are, obviously, we're talking about stronger drugs here.
Well, we know that
they have the potential to, in the long term, require you to take another pill to combat the side effects of the first pill. Whereas with holistic medicine, it kind of either works or it doesn't. It suits you or it doesn't. It doesn't come with the side effects of modern day medicines. So
modern day medicines they'll have a lot of effects, only one of which you want. That's the problem. And the rest of them are just like, I wish I didn't have these.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. So you know, there are benefits in both, but so that's obviously brought us up to date with Western medicine.
Yes. Yeah.
So Western medicine very much follows the notion of treating the ailments, treating the actual symptoms, and it is from the empiricism belief rather than the rationalism belief. So this is following Aristotle's kind of work. And I know there's other medics through the years that are very important. I've just used Hippocrates. Hippocrates.
No, Hippocrates, you got it right.
Hippocrates and Aristotle as two examples because they're from opposing sides.
Yeah.
And what we're going to find here is that Western medicine is from an opposing side to Islamic medicine. Yeah.
Having said that, I suppose medicine is kind of there is that, you know, medicine 2.0 is you know, treat the disease and the person is incidental. We are getting to a bit of a like medicine 3.0 when they're actually people are saying actually you know, like for treating Alzheimer's, the you know, that we've got all these drugs that don't do very much for Alzheimer's disease, but research has shown that the biggest thing that improves Alzheimer's disease, and we're talking like, staves it off, stops it coming, you know, in older people, and can make it better, is exercise. So
lifestyle,
and you can't, you know, you can't dose, you know, unfortunately you can't get an exercise pill, so you just got to do it. But you know, there is an acceptance that actually, and things like sleep is pushing its way up, and you know, everyone's saying that, you know, again, Alzheimer's and sleep is linked. Or lack of sleep is linked. I mean, you only have to look at
it's a contributing factor.
Well, Maggie Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, who were both at the time, you know, leaders of their respective countries, who were definitely, you know, they would survive on 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep a night habitually. And said it was great and they could function, and they both got really bad Alzheimer's disease. I know, but I'm just looking at like two people, but they were very high profile, pushing the we don't need to sleep agenda. And yet now we've got, you know, the medical profession telling us that actually, you know, we should be aiming to, you know, try and get 8 hours, at least 7 hours of sleep. And if you do get the right amount of sleep, so we're moving full circle back to the sense of the holistic, aren't we?
It's definitely there, and there is a place for both to.
Well, that's the thing. It is both, really, isn't it? That's where the truth lies.
Because what you have to remember is, if you you start showing signs of some particular illness, and you decide to take the holistic option, and you have time to be able to speak to a holistic practitioner, seek advice, what is it you need, and work your way around the holistic approach, which, like I say, is quite a slower method. You do have to allow it. You have to have patience to take a holistic route, regardless of what the illness is. But if you were walking down the street and something fell and your leg chopped off, you're not going to go and start foraging for the right berry or the right leaf. You're going to get yourself straight to accident and emergency. And at that point, you're going to need a surgeon. You're going to need an anaesthetist. You're going to need, very, very fast acting pain relief.
Western medicine and acute conditions has really got its act sorted out. So if you've got something that's very, very, like you've had an accident, we need to stop, somebody bleeding to death, and restructuring something that's been damaged, a part of your body that's been damaged. We've got very, very good at that. We're very, very good at infectious diseases, extremely good at infectious diseases. The likes of, people don't die of cholera in London like they were. When they discovered that actually they thought the humours transmitted the disease, whereas actually it was water. It was microbes in water, and the discovery of microbes was kind of a stepping point to then discovering antibiotics and things like that. So these, the things that medicine has been absolutely excellent at are these kind of acute diseases, but it's the chronic stuff that we're rubbish at. The chronic stuff that we've hardly, maybe we've got a handle on cardiovascular disease, but the other things, the cancers,
but this is where your holistic medicine comes in, because this is your prevention rather than cure.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So it's like we've gone too far down the, we'll treat the specific disease and forget that the person's actually sat there with the disease. Whereas, the holistic approach, you look first and foremost at the person that is exhibiting these symptoms rather than what the disease is.
Well, that's a lot of children, when they're growing up, and the parents, obviously all parents hope that their children will grow up and become something amazing and successful. And I think especially within the Muslim community, you do find a lot of pressure on children. Parents want their children to become doctors or teachers. It's quite kind of specific job roles. And a lot of the Muslims do go out and become doctors. And we need this, and we need female doctors as well, because as a female, I do not want to go into a doctor's surgery, for example, to have a child and have an all-male team. If I can have an all-female team, of course I am going to choose this. So if husbands, if dads, if brothers want the women in their family to not have to expose themselves to male doctors, they have to allow the women in the family to go out and be trained as doctors, to allow a female team to be able to help female patients. So we do need, obviously, and it is so much more helpful when you come across a Muslim doctor who understands that there's a level of modesty, that you're going to try and keep whatever modesty you can in certain situations. And it does help for them to understand that. So we do need Muslim doctors, but I strongly believe, and this is obviously a personal opinion, that we need more Islamic medicine doctors as well. We need doctors who either understand both or just go and get trained in Islamic medicine as well, because this is such a forgotten practice. It's not understood anywhere near where it should be. It's not prescribed as much as it should be. And there is benefit in both. Like I say, we need our hospitals, we need our A&E departments, we need this to go on. But if we can have Islamic medicine a lot more at the forefront than what it is, we may need to use these pharmaceutical drugs, or we may need to use our GPs less, which opens the doorway to things like accidents,
Mhm.
and their waiting times can be less and stuff like that, because we are
Oh, yeah.
actively preventing ourselves
Yeah.
as a community, as a
Mhm.
nation, from getting ill in the first place. And this can be done best with something like Islamic medicine.
Mhm.
Now we're going to do the history of Islamic medicine. We've covered Western medicine. We're going to do the the history of Islamic medicine. I am so
Right words, wrong order.
tired today. Honestly, astaghfirullah. It's just we're over halfway in Ramadan now,
Yeah.
isn't it? This is where the sleep starts
Yeah.
catching up with you.
It is.
It's not even the lack of food anymore. It literally
It's
is the lack
sleep,
of
innit?
sleep. But
Sleep.
alhamdulillah, I'm not complaining. I'm just apologizing for my tongue being tied. I'm going to do the dua of Musa actually during the ad break, because he did a very beautiful dua
Yes.
to have the knot loosened from his tongue when he
That's the
needed
one,
to
yeah.
give dawah
Speak
to
to
the
the
pharaoh
pharaoh,
and stuff. So I'm going to do his dua. I normally do it. I didn't today actually. It's my thing today. So anyway, we're going to go for a small ad break, and when we come back, we will move on to the history of Islamic medicine, inshallah. So please stay tuned to myself, Sister and Julie on Sister Circle, live on Radio Ramadan, and we're here with you until 4, inshallah.
والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله سبحان
104.5 CVFM. Do you have a vacancy to fill right now? Because right now at Job Centre Plus, we have thousands of people ready to work for your business. Right now across the country, our work coaches are helping thousands of employers connect with the people they need. So right now, you could be speaking to a named employer advisor and matching a candidate to one of your vacancies. Speed up your recruitment at gov.uk/way-to-work.
Time for a change? Looking for that home improvement? Borough Carpets has you covered. We offer a wide range of luxurious carpets, vinyls and laminates. We offer a free fitting and underlay included to give you the great quality at affordable prices. We cater for lots of different preferences, whether you want that perfect soft touch carpet for your new home, need to freshen up your rental property, or even a change in the office. We also provide free measurements before you book your fitting for accuracy and to discuss exactly what you're looking for. Call us on 01642 688 786 or to see our variety of amazing samples, pop down to our Middlesbrough showroom located at 131 to 133 Park Lane.
Over 5 million homes are at risk of flooding, yet many people don't realise they're in danger. Even if you've never been flooded before, it can happen to you. Protect your family and home. Prepare, act, survive. Prepare a bag including medicines and insurance documents. Act by moving important items upstairs or as high as possible. Survive by listening to emergency services. Search what to do in a flood and sign up to flood warnings on gov.uk.
Ali's Superstore, the talk of the town.
Ali's Superstore, probably the largest international food store in the Northeast, stocking a big variety of products at unbeatable prices. Visit us for all your herbs and spices, exotic fruit and veg, savoury and sweet snacks, and frozen foods. Oh, did we mention that we also have an in-house butcher's department? Ali's Superstore is currently offering 10% discount across all products for NHS staff, critical care workers, and students on presenting of a valid ID. Ample free parking available for your convenience. Local delivery service also available on orders over £50.
Ali's Superstore, located in Linthorpe Village. Visit us today at 436 Linthorpe Road, Middlesbrough. Telephone 01642 134 866. 01642 134 866. Ali's Superstore, your local international food store.
Harry next door is amazing. 79 and he's got a tool for everything. He cooks a cracking Sunday dinner for himself and he plays a mean game of cribbage. These days, there's only one thing he's not so good at, remembering to test his smoke alarms. So I go around and do it, while Harry finds the right screwdriver I've never got.
If you know an older person, please test their smoke alarms regularly. It could save their independence, and a lot more besides. Fire kills. You can prevent it.
It's amazing what a difference small, simple changes can make, especially when it comes to your weight. Getting started is easier than you think with the free NHS Weight Loss app. It helps you to take those simple steps to lose those extra pounds. Download the free app today. Better health. Let's do this.
This is your local community station, CVFM Radio.
Every day, so Allah give me the strength, show me the way the Prophet went. Let me hold tight to your rope. Without Islam, there is no hope. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Ya Allah, I thank you for my clothes and my food. As I live throughout this test, I'll remember I've been blessed. Ya Allah, hear my dua. Please help your ummah so that we can all unite and praise you day and night. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. 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 Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Sisters Circle. We're with you until 4 o'clock, inshallah, talking about the history of Islamic medicine. And just before the ad break, we went into the history of Western medicine. And now we are going to open the history of Islamic medicine, inshallah. So obviously medicine, as we mentioned earlier, already existed pre-Islam. You know, the Muslims didn't invent medicine. You know, people were existing before that. Medicine it was existing before that.
And useful medicines as well, not your absolutely.
Some great medicines that still exist today. Mm-hmm. You know, some practices that still exist today. And what the Muslims, they created a base knowledge from the Greeks, the Persians, the Syrians, the Indians, and the Byzantine Rome. They also initially contributed customs practiced by the non-Muslim Arabs as well. And overall, this medical system gave priority. This is where it differs to the Western system. But overall, this medical system gave priority to the preservation of health over the curing of ailments. So again, it's that whole concept of prevention rather than cure.
Yeah.
So the Quran came, and obviously within the Quran it mentions the beneficial effects of some foods, such as dates and honey, for example. While the second main Islamic reference can be found in the Sunnah. And this is where we get the guidelines from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding things like lifestyle, food intake, simple management of ailments such as, you know, fever, headaches, stomach issues such as diarrhea and constipation. You know, we kind of get some insight from there as well.
Yeah, because we've got hadith. The Sunnah. Well, it is hadith, isn't it? Because there was that, you know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said you how you should eat, isn't it? Is the third for for drink, a third for food, and
Yeah.
and you know, basically don't overfill yourself.
Well, this is one of the more well-known hadith, actually, but there are so many. There are so many, which we will, inshallah, cover, next week, which is the future of Islamic medicine. But according to Islamic medicine, the history of Islamic medicine, they were looking at the physical ailments were thought to arise from the result of accumulation of excess waste in the body. So they believe that a lot of the disease came from excess waste in the body, which we see so much of today. And I mean, a prime example is obesity. That's excess food waste in the body, and it results in obesity, overeating, improper food choices, an unhealthy lifestyle in general. In the history of Islamic medicine, were regarded as the sources of the accumulated morbid matter, which would overwhelm the digestive process, and disease would be the result. So we know in today's times, we know and it's been quite a recent discovery, actually, amongst scientists, that there's a link between the gut and the brain. But Islamic medicine had that linked. That linked.
Well, it's been they had that link. It was entirely forgotten, and it's been poo-pooed, if you'll excuse the expression, for for hundreds of years. And we are really talking about like the last 3 or 4 years, when they've discovered that there are chemicals that are secreted by the microbes in your gut that can affect depression.
Yes.
Just like what the heck? It's just so it's taken microbiologists and the ability to look at ever smaller details within the body to actually go, the gut, it actually has a massive impact on the brain and mood and health of your body generally.
But oddly enough, this is something that the non-Muslim Arabs were very, very good at. They were very well trained in nutrition and the understanding of the effects of food, both good and bad food, upon the body and upon the health.
Yeah, because there's people now who'll do, like, they take a little sample of what comes out of the end of you, and they will tell you what microbes are in there and tell you what to eat to encourage better microbes, which is and in getting those better microbes, your health would improve.
Absolutely,
so that's exactly what as you said, the pre-Muslim Arabs were doing, isn't it?
Definitely. But one of the most important features of Islamic medicine is the fact that it regards the human being as a sacred entity that consists of a physical body and then a soul.
Yes.
So what they believe is that actually to attain good health, or the purity of the soul, would be the initial and ultimate aim of any Islamic healer, any Islamic medicine practitioner. Their aim is to actually look at the soul separate to the body and look at the soul first. So in much of the original Islamic literature, we can find many sections, even in today's literature as well, we can find many sections on methods of purifying the heart. The Muslim scholars referred to modern psychological ailments such as hatred, envy, attachment to material life, anger, hostility, as diseases of the heart or a soul ailment, and that should be managed first before trying to attend to ailments of the physical body.
So looking at kind of mental health.
So if you put that into today's words and you consider it, for example, we know, in today's society, a lot of people are overly stressed, overly stimulated, and the physical effects of overstress and of overstimulation are detrimental to our physical health today. And this is something that the Muslims realized back then.
I mean, the medics would tell us it was cortisol and all this kind of stuff.
We are seeing it so much today. You mentioned it earlier, Julie, when you said about people running on 2 or 3 hours sleep. in today's society, it's seen that the more we juggle, the better a person we are, the more we've got going on, the more successful we are. But we do that at the cost of our health. We do that at the cost of our sleep. We do that at the cost of our sanity. And as you mentioned, you know, some of these people that were so productive in their younger years ended up having Alzheimer's in their older years, and were robbed of a good section of their life due to the disease of Alzheimer's. So, you know, this is something that the Islamic medical practitioners knew then, that in some cases of some ill health, they had to treat the heart, a person's soul, before they could treat their body, because the effects of anger on the body, the effects of stress on the body, the effects of jealousy, hatred, upset, grief, were enough to make the physical body ill. So then if we compare that allopathic medicine to holistic medicine, the allopathic medicine, you know, a person would come into the GP and say, I'm having these symptoms. And the GP may not have the time in their very short appointment to maybe sit there and say, well, why are you having these symptoms? Or actually, well, a month ago, my nearest and dearest passed away and I'm grieving. Whereas from a holistic point of view, it would be, well, your body is suffering these ailments because your heart is grieving for this person you have that has passed away. So we need to look at your heart and maybe instill some patience, maybe it's teach you some dua, maybe it's get you reading some Quran, maybe giving you some good company, distraction. Let's do some physical activity, let's do some movement, let's get out and see nature, you know, these types of things. Whereas the allopathic treatment would be this person's you know, brain waves outright, so we'll give them an antidepressant and we'll send them to counseling, and that's going to fix everything, rather than actually identifying that the soul is struggling.
And which of those treatments is more effective? That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, giving somebody antidepressants doesn't do anything.
No, it would affect the brainwaves, but the cause is still there.
It switches your head off, and then you've still got it. You're just kicking the can further down the road, because that process still has to be gone through. The grieving process still has to be gone through. Whereas, as you described, what the Islamic medicine would do, it works you through the grief. So it works you through, and in doing so, brings you more in contact with, in connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Absolutely.
And nature, and appreciation of nature, and the cyclical nature of everything. And it's a, you know, it makes that grieving process an easier process, because of the, you know, you're actually, your heart then is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you then appreciate, you know, the life that person had. And, you know, it's, I suppose at the end of the process, both people will have come to the end of that process, but one will have had a much better experience working through it.
Well, if you consider it this way, if you take maybe, say, an atheist who believes that death is the end of everything, and you take a Muslim that understands that death is just moving on to the next stage, and we understand that there are things we can do, you know, we can give charity in a person's name, we can pay off any debt that they had, we can make dua for them. You know,
so there's things you can actively do to make that person's condition
journey
better.
easier. We would hope that person would their good deeds would accumulate and be enough to get them into Jannah. And if we want to see them again, we can work on our own deeds to make sure that our own deeds are good enough to then get us into Jannah, where at that point we have the opportunity to be reunited with that person, and Jannah is forever. So when somebody dies within the Muslim faith, although it's still very upsetting, and we grieve that loss of that person's presence, we have the opportunity to better ourselves and have that reunion with them in Jannah. You know, somebody who maybe is atheist, they don't have that. They don't have, nobody can sit down at that point and have that conversation with them. Look, work on yourself, you know, you inshallah, you'll see them again. You know, this kind of whole concept is very, very different. And this is the working on the soul, isn't it? But you can't work on the soul of an atheist. The only option you would have would be some type of medication, some type of medication. Whereas, you know, from an Islamic point of view.
Mhm.
We can work on healing the soul
Yes.
with the right ayats, the right sunnah.
Mhm.
And obviously there's that beautiful ayat of the Quran that we have that says, verily with the remembrance of Allah do hearts find ease, hearts find rest.
Yeah.
And it's true, you know, we can't run around the people and get the help from people. We have to go to Allah, and the help comes, and the ease and the patience and the cooling of the eyes and the softening
It's
of
all
the
in the
heart
Quran, isn't it? Yeah.
comes from Allah. So this is where the Islamic medical practitioners would be of the notion that in the cases of some disease, you had to actually treat the heart, or rather the soul, before the physical body. And quite often when you treated the heart and the soul, the ailments of the body would go away. As I said, in some cases.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least the thing that was making things worse would be alleviated.
Yeah.
So then the body can set about healing itself, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly like that. Now, Islamic medicine passed through 3 stages. So the first stage was the translation of the Greek and Persian medical books into Arabic. And this took place in the first 2 centuries after Hijrah. So obviously, I mean, to understand anything, you have to be able to understand the language. So if a lot of these books existed in other languages, it had to be translated so that the Muslim practitioners could you know, really
and of course
grasp what was
they were
going
aware
on.
of all these different medical schools, effectively, or you know, so the cultures, because of where the Arabs were situated in the world. You know, they were at the crossroads of all these, you know, the Indian and the Chinese and the Persians and the Greeks.
They were in a good position.
Yeah, so they were in a position to know that all these things existed. Whereas, you know, you're looking at, you know, the likes of Europe is a little bit more north and westward and kind of out of
and
that.
the UK is on its own, isn't it? We're surrounded by water.
Indeed.
So it's a lot different. During the second stage, many of the Muslim physicians they actually started adding to this information that they were collecting with their own knowledge, and with their own contributions and their own experiences. And then the third stage, finally, was that they were of the notion that if medicine should be used, then it had to be similar as much as possible to regular food and contain no noxious or harmful chemicals.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
So it was very, you know, it was sort of, we will treat the soul.
Yeah.
Then we will treat the body with holistic options. And then as an ultimate final resort, if we can't, if that's not working, then we will look at allopathic medicine, but it shouldn't be harmful to the body.
Yeah, it is. It's because our medicines that we have now are very, very potent.
They are.
I mean, you can have a pill that's like tiny, and you'll take 1 a day, and that's supposed to treat an illness. You could just imagine how strong that medicine actually is. Whereas if you could take something that does exactly the same thing, but it would be, you know, you would sprinkle it on your 3 meals a day, how much less potent that would be, less strong, less, and you would have a lot less in the way of, you know, sort of the effects that you don't want, that we call side effects, because it's delivered over that a much longer time scale, and it's less concentrated.
Well, with holistic medicine, a lot of the times you would make it fresh and then you would use it kind of straight away. Whereas allopathic medicine, it would need to be stabilized, it would need to be preserved, it would need to be, you know, the ingredients would need to not react with each other. So there's a lot of other things going into allopathic medicine, as well as the medicine. Whereas a lot of holistic medicine is sort of made there and then used pretty much there and then. And some of it can be stored, some of it can. There are some medicines that can have a couple of years shelf life. There's actually some holistic medicines that get stronger and better with time.
Yeah, but it's like honey. Keeps forever, doesn't it?
Well, it does, yeah. It's, you know, it's what honey is the only food that will never ever go off ever. They've took honey out of the pyramids, haven't they? Which they've deemed like thousands and thousands and thousands of year old, and it's still edible today. It's completely fine. Nothing's, you know, contaminated it. You know, so there are ways of doing it, but generally speaking, a lot of holistic medicines are kind of made sort of right, what's wrong with you? Okay, I'll make it. This is what you need. And like I say, allopathic medicine doesn't work like that. It's made in bulk, and it's made.
And it's
it has
the same for
it
everybody.
has a shelf life, but then it requires other things to go in it to stabilize it,
Oh,
which
yeah.
the body doesn't particularly like. So it's not necessarily
No.
maybe it's the initial medicine, but it's the other ingredients.
Mhm.
How many times do you look at a supplement even, as well as a medicine, and it'll say bulking agent.
Oh, yeah,
Everything
yeah.
contains bulking agents. Well, the body isn't designed, our kidneys and liver are not designed to keep filtering these bulking agents of high quantity long term.
And your microbes don't like them either.
Nothing likes them. They don't even need the excuse of, well, the pill would be too small otherwise. How many people have these huge horse pills, and they're so incredibly hard to swallow.
Yeah.
Please just give me a small pill.
A smaller pill would be lovely.
Take the bulking agent out. I'm happy with that. But anyway, so two very famous Muslim physicians. And again, there are many. I mentioned obviously two from the Western side. I'm going to only mention two from the Muslim side, but there are so many. So one is Al-Razi, and the other is Ibn Sina. Now, Al-Razi, he stressed the importance of the will or the desire of the patient to actually get well. So he really believed that the patient themselves had to want to get well.
Yeah.
They have to, and what he was of the notion that if the patient didn't want to get better, they weren't going to get better, even if they were treated.
Yeah.
The treatment wouldn't be as good, because again, that's the connection between the mind, the body, and the soul. And the mind doesn't want to get well, so it would have that negative impact on the body. The patient has to get better, and he really stressed that importance. And he also listed certain principles for the preservation of health, and this list included things, and I'm not going to list all of them, but such as moderation and balance in one's food and drink. So this is something we don't see moderation and balance in today's society of food and drink. Physical activity and rest, that importance of balance between physical activity and rest. You can't have one without the other. You shouldn't have rest without activity. You shouldn't have activity without rest. Improvement of the surrounding environment and the environmental conditions. And this is becoming so important in today's society. And obviously this is like, hundreds of years old, this information.
Well, this was,
but it's so important.
Al-Razi was, he was born in like 801.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
He was ahead of his time, because the information that he's given us from then is so important now, such as, the improvement of your surrounding environmental conditions. Now, people that live in with mold in their house, for example, in the UK, that can be quite a problem amongst all the buildings, and it's so bad for your lungs to be breathing in that mold. It causes so much asthma, allergies, it weakens the immune system. It's so bad for you. And if you think of environmental conditions as well, something that's quite in our minds and in our eyes and hearts at the moment is the condition in Turkey, for example, due to the earthquake, how the people are living there. Their environmental conditions at the moment are, nowhere near perfect, nowhere even, humanitarian. They're just out of balance completely. And the problem is that the longer they live like that, they will face more and more disease, because their environment is not healthy.
Just can't cope with the stresses,
and that's a mental environment as well as it is a physical environment. So this is something that Al-Razi mentioned, like I say, hundreds of years ago. So he mentioned that the environmental conditions was really important to your health. Adopting an active, healthy lifestyle, and this is really big, avoiding sins and evil acts. This is really big, because obviously when you perform a sin or you perform an evil act, again, this is that link between the body and the soul, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the balancing of, and again, this is something we're seeing in today, balancing one's ambitions with one's willpower and ability.
Yeah.
Keeping in, what you want to do and what you're capable of doing.
Keeping it real.
And not sacrificing your health or your relationship with others in a bid to get to whatever it is that your ambition is. So this was Al-Razi, and his words have got so much weight in them in today's society. And the other famous Muslim physician is Ibn Sina. Now, he was known to the West as Avicenna, and I don't know why they called him that. That's what they called him. But Ibn Sina was educated in the science of the Quran, Islamic law, mathematics, anatomy, logic, and philosophy. So a very clever man, mashallah. And he was widely acknowledged and respected for his book of medicine, which is called Al-Qanun, which means the law. And you can still get this book today, actually. It's fascinating. You know, people should, if you're interested in anything of the holistic nature, his book is something you need to look at. And it has 142 herbal remedies made from plants, trees, seeds, and spices. You know, amazing book. And these are obviously two famous Muslim physicians that, you know, I could have mentioned more. I've just kind of stuck to them too. Both of the rationalism belief, which is the opposite of the allopathic empiricism belief. But also just something worth noting that during the 8th century after Hijrah, that a new type of medical writing occurred. And this is called the prophetic medicine. Okay, this is the medicine of the prophet, peace be upon him. And what's different on this occasion is, one, this was intended as an alternative to the Greek-based medical science, but the authors this time were not doctors, but they were religious scholars. So obviously Ibn Sina, Al-Razi, these were medical professionals. But at the time when the prophet's medicine was put together, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was by religious scholars. And they revived the tradition, because it was fading. They revived the tradition of medical knowledge applied and practiced by the Arabs of the time during the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and advocated Quranic teachings and those of the Sunnah over the Greek medical practices. Now, moving on to the 10th century after Hijrah, Islamic medicine began to be really, really challenged by guess who? The West, and the rapidly spreading science of modern allopathic medicine, which unfortunately finally took over the core of the health systems, not just in the West, but also in most of the Islamic countries too.
Kind of.
And then here we are today.
Yes, indeed.
So that's our Western history and our Islamic history. But if we just backtrack slightly on our Islamic history. So Al-Razi, he built a famous hospital, right?
He did. He built a famous hospital in Baghdad. Now, there was a hospital in Baghdad built in 805, which is actually the year of his birth. That was the very first hospital ever. But Al-Razi was he was tasked with, because he was a doctor anyway, he was tasked with building another hospital in Baghdad. He was actually started off as a medical researcher. He wrote about 200 books. So and one of his last book, which was unfinished, was basically kind of distilled everything together, and that was actually that was translated into Latin and actually was still used at the beginning of the 20th century. But yeah, he was asked to select a location to build this. This was going to be the best hospital in Baghdad. This was in 981. So what he did was he got some meat and he hung this meat in different locations around the city. So because he was a researcher and because he had that basically scientific method, because he would look at, he would use rationalization to decide, whether something should work, and then he would experiment and see if it worked. So his thoughts were that if he could find the place in the city that where the meat would rot the least, and that would be the best place to build a hospital. So he built it by the Tigris River. So that, yeah.
But that obviously what we've just mentioned there was Al-Razi. He was of the opinion that the environment was really important.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So the fact that he's
so he wasn't tasked with building the hospital in the best place. He was like, I need to build this hospital in the place that's the healthiest place in the city, because he knew that there was a link between the environment and how healthy people were, and he'd seen that before. So he also, it's because you mentioned him earlier on, that's some of the things he said, but there was a few other things that I kind of found out about him, he said that there was the doctor-patient relationship was a very specific relationship based on trust, and that the doctor had the duty to help the patient, but the patient had a duty to follow the doctor's advice as well.
Yes.
Funny that. So it is a two-way street. But he absolutely had this this holistic approach to health. He was understood the nature of illness, that he looked at the cause of the symptoms, not the symptoms themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the exact opposite of where the West eventually ended up going. Weirdly enough, though, it was, we're saying that the West says this and the Eastern medicine said that, but if you look at the time, we're talking about 800, 900 Common Era. What was happening in Europe at the time, if we look at what was happening at the same time, Europe was basically, if they had a hospital anywhere, it would be in a monastery. The monasteries, the monks believed that illness was supernatural and uncontrollable.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically they weren't really hospitals, they were hospices. You either got better or you died. Because they just made the patients comfortable, and that was it. Because they didn't believe that you could do anything to help someone who was ill. Whereas, as you say, at exactly that same time, in these Islamic cities, in the likes of Baghdad and Cairo and Damascus, where they were building these hospitals, they were using the medicine that they knew of, that they were incorporating all the medicine from basically the whole world, and they were building these hospitals, which were, because when we think of hospitals, we just think of a place where you go to get better, but they were more, and not a big building. These were more like an urban kind of complexes that were like really spread out, and parks, and they were designed to be beautiful and healthy and airy, because there was that belief that the environment, yes, they had a lot of money, because we're talking there were these things called waqfs, which were basically sadaqah jariyah, really. So families would donate money to these
because
foundations.
These hospitals were free.
Yes,
there was
absolutely.
No charge.
They were free
them.
To absolutely everybody, anybody, man, woman, child, rich, poor, traveller, Muslim, non-Muslim, anybody could present themselves at these hospitals and they would be treated, and it didn't matter what they would take
a bit like the NHS today.
Indeed, yes. So you could have a mental illness, they would treat that, and they would be and you left the hospital when you were ready to leave. So when somebody deemed that they were well enough to leave, they would leave. So yeah, you had people who were, there were some hospitals that were built at the time of the Crusades. So we're looking at like basically field people coming in with desperate injuries. But there was also hospitals where they would treat chronic injuries or chronic diseases. And mental illness. They would treat mental illness with music therapy, and there was all people who were old and infirm and unable to look after themselves, and their families, they didn't have the family to look after themselves, because obviously traditionally Muslim families looked after the people who got the older people who were unable to take care of themselves due to ill health and getting old. But there was there would be people who didn't have those families, and they were looked after as well. So it was kind of a a little like a little town itself, really, with all these different areas within. But these, so that there was, in some hospitals, there was some state money, but it was mostly these donations from families and individuals while they were living or when they died to help these communities, these hospitals work. And there was a lot of money around, because we were talking about the golden age of Islam. This was before the Mongol invasion. This was when Islam was the richest place on the earth, really. And there were people and these wakafs were like foundations, so there would be an organisation that would send people into hospitals to visit other people and cheer them up and just be nice to them. It's just like, it just sounds absolutely
But how many
amazing.
people in today's times will say about how depressing a hospital is?
Oh, yeah.
The idea of needing a stay in hospital.
They're the least restful places in the world,
instantly you think, oh no, because you're going to be confined to a bed, potentially in a room with other people with just, a curtain pulled around for any type of privacy.
Getting disturbed every hour of the night.
The machines are going off. I mean, in one respect, obviously, if you're very severely poorly, you could argue and say, well, it's the best place for me because I'm going to get the best care, I'm going to get the best medical needs. But at the same time, they're just not happy places. They're not, as you mentioned, the hospitals that the Muslim world were building were, they were spacious, they were breezy, there was fresh air circulating. There was a lot of water to sit around. There was greenery to sit around. There was, it was because they built them on the notion that the environment is important, that the physical activity is important, that the spiritual aspect of the person's well-being is important. The person had to want to get better.
Yes.
And when you're confined to, a bed in a hospital ward, I mean, for some people alone, just losing the will to live right there is so difficult. And consider the people that during the times of COVID that weren't even allowed that contact with the outside world, where visitors weren't allowed to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They weren't even, even that was denied to them. So the mental health of people who would have had to have stayed in the hospital during COVID must have been even worse than, outside of that time.
There would be an argument that a lot of the people who either got very ill during COVID or maybe even didn't survive, the conditions that they were effectively held in would.
I mean, look at people who get sectioned, and people who are deemed a danger to themselves when they get put in a cell effectively with nothing else in there. That is not going to do anybody's mental health any good at all, because if you feel a little bit down, nothing major, but you feel a little bit down and out of sorts, and you go for a walk in, up the hills or across some fields, or you just get out and you feel that space and you see that greenery, you realize that all of these things are from Allah's inspiration. It lifts you.
It does. Absolutely.
It lifts you, and it can make you be in a better mood. Mentally, you go into a better place.
Yeah.
Whereas if I said, well, I don't know, Julie, you're feeling a bit down, I think I need to go and put you in a little cell in the room and I need to lock the door for your own safety.
You're just like, yeah,
When
that's
I came back the next day, you're not going to be doing any better, are you?
No, absolutely not.
You're really not.
No.
So,
well, there's those chemicals, isn't there, they've isolated now that from mussels that actually they call them hope chemicals. So so if you exercise, it releases these chemicals, that actually makes you happier.
That's the serotonins.
Yeah,
endorphins.
Dolphins,
as we got taught when I was at university, they were called dolphins.
Dolphins. No, that's the stuff that gets released within the brain, but these are the chemicals that are released from the mussels that actually circulate to your brain.
Yeah.
So yeah, just you got to get out there, got to be in nature.
But this was the plan of the old hospitals, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And also something that I remember, that these were the Muslim hospitals, were some of the first hospitals that actually looked at the mental health of people and didn't just kind of sanction them as being insane.
No, that was it. They weren't like written off as like having, being untreatable basically, and just lock them up. There was an acknowledgement that this was another illness, and that it needed treating differently, but it would still need treatment.
Which is why they looked at the spiritual aspect of us rather than just the physical aspect as well.
Yeah. So we had those that hospital in Baghdad, didn't we? But we had those. So the first hospital would have been 805, just. Like, as I said, when in at the same time, the monasteries were just kind of going like, it's supernatural. The devils have sent you this illness. You're just
They were very superstitious, weren't they? Even with conditions like epilepsy, for example, it was.
Oh, there was a devil.
It was. You must have been possessed, or you must have had some type of evil spirit running through you that was punishing you and stuff like that. When actually, it it is a disease, and so and it can happen at any point in your life. You can be born with it, you can develop it later, it can be after an injury. A head injury can quite often can bring on the onset of something like epilepsy. And the Muslim physicians, they were treating it as a disease and not as a possession.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, in these hospitals, it wasn't just the Muslim doctors either. It was Christians and Jewish physicians. They just came from all over, because this was the nexus of health in that area. So you had the Christians. They'll have been the Christians who were kind of in Egypt and places like that, because they'd have known of the hospital, the hospital in Cairo, for instance. But yeah, it was the place to go if you wanted to be a physician, and it didn't really matter, what your religious background was, if you wanted to be the best physician. And these hospitals, they weren't just hospitals either. They were teaching hospitals. So you had medical schools. There was qualifications issued. If somebody had qualified from the hospital in Cairo, that was like, they were an amazing doctor. And they had libraries as well. There was the hospital that was built in Damascus. Let me find it. So that was the Anouri Hospital in Damascus. That was built in 1156. That was a little bit later. And that was during the Crusades. So it needed to be a well-equipped, well-staffed hospital. But it had written books. Now, if you think that in 1156, written books were handwritten books. So a library was a massive undertaking, and it needed somebody very, very rich to have a library. And the king of Damascus at the time donated a whole library of medical books to the hospital for them. And that was the first hospital that introduced medical records to help with, if the patients returned, or the patients could continue with the medical treatment elsewhere. And that was somebody. One of the doctors that worked there was Ibn al-Nafis, and he discovered the pulmonary circulation system.
Yes, he did.
But that hospital was a hospital for 7 centuries. The one in Cairo was a hospital for 6 centuries. The first one in Cairo, there was lots of hospitals.
The hospitals we build today, they won't even last half of that
they'll
time.
fall over. Yeah.
Despite the equipment that we have access to, the buildings themselves.
No, they're not going to last that. Yeah, we're tearing down buildings that were built in the 1960s, aren't we? Because they're falling to bits. These structures lasted. They were well built, but also they were centres of excellence, and they were spreading that excellence to all the peoples in the area. And it didn't really matter, where they came from, whether they were Christian or Muslim or Jewish or whatever. It was a recognition that there was something very special going on in these places. Islamic's medicine, you see, it's great.
very, very different to the Western world, where you've got, obviously, we mentioned earlier in the show that there was a budding relationship between the pharmaceutical company and the upcoming medical students who realized that there was financial gain when they worked together.
Oh, there was definitely a bit of cross-pollination. Yeah,
and then you had the Muslim physicians thriving to the point where they were able to build these huge, tranquil hospitals and offer free treatment to anybody that came in with any condition, with any ailment. And this is, when you think about it, if most of your treatments, because obviously the Muslim physicians didn't solely use holistic options, they did have access to medicine at this point, and they stated, didn't they, that they would treat the soul, they would treat the body, and they would use medicine as the final stage if they couldn't heal the person any other way. But then that medicine had to be non-toxic.
Yes.
It had to not cause further harm to the body, which, as we mentioned, is very difficult to find in a lot of the cases. But what you have is, in the Muslim world, these hospitals were being built as sort of health sanctuaries or health spas you might want to kind of look at?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the one in the first one that was built in Cairo, what they used to do was you basically enter the hospital and everything that you had, your clothes, your money, any valuables it had with you, they would store them away for you, and they would give you special clothes to wear. It's just like going to a health spa, isn't it? So you like kind of like entered this other world where all your material worries were taken away from you, and all you had to concentrate on was getting better.
Getting better.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen, does it? If you think about it, I mean, how many, especially probably parents with young children can probably relate the quickest to this, is that when your health goes down, for example, I don't know, you have like a really bad flu, or you're bedridden, and you've got little ones running around. It's not happening, is it? It's so
you're not
difficult.
Bedridden, you're not really bedridden, are you?
You know, it's mummy, daddy, and you don't want to get out of your bed. There's no respite for you. Even if you can't get out of bed, your brain's thinking, and I'm going to have to arrange someone to maybe get them to school. I'm going to have to arrange someone to maybe make their dinner. I'm going to have to ask someone to come over and help with the baby and change nappies because I can't get out of bed, something like this. But the brain of the parent is still,
so your stresses
you're not
just
able
increase,
to,
don't they?
you're not able to fully relax. And obviously that stress on that mental stress of trying to keep the load of the family going is actually slowing down the healing process of the physical body. This is the link that the Islamic, the Muslim physicians found, that link between the emotions, the spirits, the spiritual side, and the digestive process as well. That how they're just all linked, and one can affect the other. So just by treating one thing isn't going to maybe heal the original cause. And it's so hard as parents for young children to fully have that. Right, I'm not well. I'm going to switch off mentally. I'm going to switch off physically.
You just can't.
It can't happen for parents or anybody that has, somebody that they're responsible for. It's very, very difficult to do. But as you mentioned, these hospitals catered for that whole aspect of. I'll go through it again because I think it's just worth mentioning, because it was obviously Al-Rizi who built this hospital that mentioned the importance of, first of all, the desire of the patient to get well. The patient had to want to get well, otherwise it wasn't going to happen. But then his list of principles for preserving health included the moderation and balance of one's food and drink, the balance between physical activity and rest, the importance of the surrounding environmental conditions, adopting an active, healthy lifestyle, avoiding sins and evil acts, and balancing one's ambitions with one's willpower and ability. And if he built his hospitals on that basis and then treated his patients upon that basis, I need to go and find this hospital. Because it's just not how it's done today, unfortunately.
It is interesting, actually, that first thing that you mentioned, that the patient has to want to get well, because this is really, really, really recent study that was done, and it was somebody who did this study quite really by accident, because their mentor said, everything's placebo, and this woman was like, nah, is it Nelly? It's all to do with the medicine works. And so she designed this experiment to see if actually convincing somebody of something would affect them physically. So it was an experiment with a milkshake. And what she did was she got one group of people and gave them this milkshake and said, this is a low calorie milkshake. It's very healthy. And you're going to, I think they had this milkshake for a number of days, maybe a week or something like that. And then she had a separate group of people, and she said, this is a high calorie milkshake. It's full of this and this and this. It's got loads of calories in it, and it's not very good for you, but you're gonna have this for a period of days. But it was exactly the same milkshake. Now, the group of people who got the low calorie milkshake lost weight, and the people who had the high calorie milkshake, in inverted commas, gained weight. They were eating the same things. So it just shows you that your brain can convince your body to do anything. It's just like, and so she was kind of like, maybe it is all placebo.
So is this why I need to tell my brain that a parmesan is really healthy for
Yes,
me?
it's the very healthy. It's the super healthy parmesan. Yeah, with
And
no
I need
calories.
to eat one every day.
Indeed,
Full
yes.
size with extra chips and
Yeah,
garlic
pepperoni
sauce.
fat on the top. Yeah.
With cake and custard afterwards, because
We've been talking about cake and custard a
it
lot,
will
haven't
make
we?
me healthy. I can convince my brain of doing that, can't I?
School cake and custard. That's come up quite a bit.
That was
recently.
last week's show,
Yes.
wasn't it? So, yeah, I just think obviously, you know, these Islamic medical, these Muslim physicians, get my words out. These Muslim physicians had so much knowledge back then that just like with Islam, it hasn't outdated itself.
It hasn't, and they were absolutely. I mean, you know, we haven't really kind of touched upon it, but they were at the cutting edge of, you know, surgical procedures as well. You know, they took because I'm particularly interested in eyes, but I was looking at cataract surgery, and you know, the Romans used to just like get a wooden stick and give the eye a big poke and dislocate your lens but they were actually removing the lens from the eye. You know, they're actually doing proper cataract surgery that we do today. You know,
Well, another just one last thing before we go. Another contraption that were invented by Muslims was the forceps.
Ooh.
Which are still obviously used in
indeed,
the delivery of children today. Forceps are still used, and this was something that was invented by Muslims as well. Obviously, we have only touched the surface of both the Western and the Islamic history, and we've only mentioned a couple of names. We could have mentioned so many more, but obviously, you know, it's a vast subject. But I just kind of want to close with the notion of something I mentioned earlier, which is whilst we have a lot of people wanting to grow up and become a doctor, we have very few people wanting to come up and become, you know, a Muslim practitioner of Islamic health, of the health, the medicine system provided by these Muslim physicians of time. The information that we have from the Quran, the Sunnah, the healing aspects of that, the treatment for that, it's so much more than what we give it credit for.
Yeah.
We're in such, we are such an impatient society. We just want to take a pill and the pill to fix it. And, you know, Allah loves those who are patient and He rewards those who are patient. And imagine that you're patient enough to go down the holistic route and, you know, one of the things you could say that you're rewarded with is not having side effects further down the line.
Yeah.
Whereas if we do the impatient route, which would be the allopathic medicine route, we are going to get side effects from that. But as I said, there is a place in today's world for both. They both have good in them.
Yep.
I'm not kind of saying that we shouldn't go to a GP, that we should go foraging instead. You know, I'm just saying that there is good in both, but we have to have a bigger understanding of our Islamic roots, the roots of Islamic medicine, the roots of Islamic history, and just how we can prevent ourselves from getting unwell rather than waiting until we get sick and then bombarding our GP surgeries with every ache and pain and, you know, because we just don't understand our bodies the way we should, the way the Muslim physicians of the olden times knew. And we really have to look at these forgotten sunnahs. We have to look at these forgotten treatments. We have to look at this history, which has just been pushed to the side in favor of more popular stories.
Yeah.
Because, as we said when we opened the show, if we don't have health, our ibadah becomes very, very difficult. To be an active practicing Muslim becomes very difficult if we don't have our health.
It does. Yeah.
So, in order to be a good Muslim, we need to have good health.
We do.
We need to have good health. So, inshallah, that was today's show based on Islamic
history,
Islamic medicine, and the history of Islamic medicine. And inshallah, next week, which will be our last show actually this Ramadan, we will look at Islamic medicine, the future of Islamic medicine.
Excellent.
And inshallah, we'll be talking about the benefit of certain practices and some things that you can do in today's time to help improve your health as well. So please do tune in next Sunday at 2:00 to listen to the future of Islamic medicine.
Excellent.
And thank you
Looking
for
forward to it.
listening to us today on the history of Islamic medicine. As always, anything that we said that is of use and of benefit and is correct is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything that we may have got wrong, have somehow misguided or said incorrectly, is from our own errors and mistakes. Please forgive us. May Allah forgive us as well. Jazakallah for listening. Any last words, Julie?
Well, no, just go out and be healthy.
100%. Okay, take care, and inshallah have an amazing week as we go into the last bit of last 10 nights soon.
Yes,
Be the
that's
last
Tuesday,
10
doesn't it?
nights soon. Make them count, people. Make them count. Okay, Jazakallah khair for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ولا إله إلا الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله.
Locked to 104.5 CVFM.
How does it feel when you stop smoking?
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I feel like I've got my life back.
I was so proud of myself.
I feel a lot richer.
It feels good.
I just feel fitter and healthier.
I felt much happier.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. With the help of NHS Smoke Free, you could experience that feeling for yourself. Our range of support tools, which includes face-to-face guidance from advisors, helps maximise your chances of success. Go online now and search for Smoke Free.
Ali's Superstore, the talk of the town.
Ali's Superstore, probably the largest international food store in the Northeast, stocking a big variety of products at unbeatable prices. Visit us for all your herbs and spices, exotic fruit and veg, savoury and sweet snacks, and frozen foods. Oh, did we mention that we also have an in-house butcher's department? Ali's Superstore is currently offering 10% discount across all products for NHS staff, critical care workers, and students on presenting of a valid ID. Ample free parking available for your convenience. Local delivery service also available on orders over £50.
Ali Superstore, located in Linthorpe Village. Visit us today at